Hi, my name is Joshua Burkhardt. I'm the Managing Director of HPO Forecasting. Many clients and also potential clients, they ask us the question, what does HPO Forecasting do? What kind of forecasts do you provide? And what is the mission and how does the forecasting model work? These and similar questions I'm going to answer to you in the next around 15 minutes. So stay tuned and let's get started. We start with the first question. HPO Forecasting provides order intake forecasts for the industrial sector, with a focus on producers of capital goods and also durable consumer goods. Our mission is to provide you with the best quality, best possible order intake forecasts so that you can do a good corporate planning. This way, we want to make a contribution to a prosperous workplace. The main difference between the HPO forecasting model and other forecasting approaches is that the genuine understanding that the real economy has a similar characteristic as an oscillating system. What does this mean? First of all, we focus really on the real economy. We do not focus on the financial markets, which behave a different way, which we are not able to forecast in a reliable way. So our world is really the one of goods, tangible goods, of industrial goods. And we have realized that the real economy has a similar characteristic as an oscillating system as we know it from control engineering. So the demand after capital goods and also durable consumer goods is heavily dependent on the economic situation, on the global economic situation. And this is what we are able to simulate and forecast with our forecasting model. So the global economic influence is, at the end of the day, it's the product of different economic indicators that behave that oscillate in a certain way after certain rules. And we have a good understanding how they oscillate, and these indicators, the oscillations, they influence each other, they overlay, and this is what we simulate and forecast with our model. And at the end of the day, we also translate those global waves into demand patterns in individual industries, and at the end of the day, even for individual companies. The theory behind our forecasting model is described in this book. Peter Meyer, the founder of our company, he summarized the 20 years of forecasting experience in this book, The Economy as an Oscillating System. It was published in 2019 in the German Hansa Verlag. It's available in German as well as in English. And in here, there's all the basics, the way we think is described in a transparent way. And yeah, for us, it's important that we show you in a transparent way how we work and what our forecasting model is based on. Basically, there are three main strengths of our forecasting approach. First of all, it's a purely mathematical model. So it's absolutely rule-based, and it doesn't matter whether Peter Meyer, the founder, my colleague, or me, or who else does the forecasting. The output is always the same because it's a very strict rule-based mathematical approach. And I think that's also one of the main secrets why we were able to provide good quality forecasts over a long time period for many different sectors. It's not some obscure gut feeling or whatever. It's mathematics, it's facts, it's rules, which we apply. The second main strength is that we maintain more than 100 sector-specific forecasting models, meaning we have a very good understanding what's happening in the world economy, in different regions of the world economy, and how is it going to develop. And the third big strength is that with our model, we have an excellent track record in the prediction of economic turning points. This is like the most difficult thing for any forecaster to see when to expect the next big crisis. And with the Peter Meyer forecasting model, it was possible. Peter Meyer, the founder, he predicted every major economic crisis of the last 20 years. The dot-com crisis 2001, the financial crisis 2008, 2009, and also the current crisis, which we will call the Corona crisis, but which actually started well before Corona entered our lives. In the newspaper, Neue Zürcher Zeitung is a renowned Swiss newspaper. There appeared a newspaper article on May 14, 2018. The article was called Wann kommt die nächste Krise? When will the next crisis come? And in this article, the newspaper journalist, he wrote about the forecasting work of Peter Meyer. He had an interview with Peter Meyer. And in this newspaper article, in the last sector, Peter Meyer was cited with the quote that he was expecting a major economic crisis in 2019, starting 2019, well into 2020. So on what basis did he come up with to this conclusion? And as I said earlier, Peter Meyer was also able to predict the 2001, 2008, 2009 crisis well in advance. And what he has realized that all the major economic crises since the 1970s, and this is the period where we have reliable data on a global scale, all major economic crises in the last 50 years, they all had one thing in common. And the thing which they had in common was that there was a specific set of macroeconomic indicators, a specific constellation of this set of macroeconomic indicators, which showed us that the economy was entering an unstable phase. And once the world economy is in an unstable phase, this means that any event, any kind of trigger can trigger the crisis, and then we have the crisis. And we are not able to forecast a pandemic or the bankruptcy of Lehman Brothers. These are one-off events which, at least for us, are not predictable. But with our model, we are able to see when the economy enters an unstable phase. And from history, we know that basically in any given year, there are enough events that take place which have the potential to trigger a crisis when the time is ready for it. And what we see with our model is just when is time ready for it, but we don't know what the trigger will be, but this is usually not so important. So now we come to this inevitable C word, the Corona pandemic. No, we could not predict the Corona pandemic, of course not. And as I said earlier, once the economy is unstable, and this was predicted back in 2017, 2018, that this would happen in 2019, 2020, any event can trigger the crisis. So we were expecting a trigger. We were not expecting the Corona. There were other things which we were expecting more, but it was Corona pandemic at the end of the day. So this trigger was not surprising that a trigger would be there. But of course, the Corona pandemic is more than a trigger. It's also an accelerator. The crisis was steeper, heavier than we were expecting before. And this is due to the non-predictable Corona factor. So what does it mean now for our forecast into the future? The good thing is, once we have this exogenic shock, this pandemic, which is not something which we can predict with the economic forecasting model, this economic shock, since we update our forecasting model every 3 months, and in these updates we take into account the newest macroeconomic data on a global scale. These exogenous shocks, they enter into our mathematical model, and the model quite quickly can recalibrate, take into account this exogenous shock, and then it can provide with quite accurate, good quality forecasts again in no time, basically. Our forecasting model works quite well in sectors, in all industrial sectors and subsectors where the economic influence has a big impact on the demand. This is mostly producers and traders of capital goods and producers and traders of consumer durables. So capital goods, lots of machinery producers, producers of components for machinery, tool manufacturers, etc. And for examples for durable consumer goods are very important subsector there is the whole automotive sector, but also things like furniture producers, these kind of things. To name a few examples of more than 100 sectors which we observe and where we do forecasting models is, for example, the global demand for Swiss machine tools, or the global demand for German construction machinery, or another model which we maintain is global, not the construction activity in the European Union, for example, and for example also the new car registrations of passenger cars and light trucks in the United States or in China. These are a few examples of sector models sectors where our forecasting model works quite well. There are 3 sets of data or categories of data that enter our forecasting model. The first one, the one that gives us help us to understand what's happening on a high level on the global economy, is the macroeconomical data, which we take from all the industrialized countries in the world, and also some of the large emerging economies where the data situation allows it. So here we just use as-is data as it is published by the OECD, and we analyze those different macroeconomic patterns. The second set of data is the sector-specific data. The thing is, most of those sectors which we analyze, they are very globalized sectors, so that's why we have to take care of the global macroeconomic data. And then to make the translation, what does it mean if the real economy in region X behaves this way? What does it mean for a specific sector? We need the sector-specific data so that we can analyze the economic pattern in this sector. And we maintain way more than 100 such sector forecasting models. And our clients, we provide them with company-specific forecasting models, and these company-specific forecasting models are derived from the sector-specific forecasting model, of course, yes, or from several different sector models. And to analyze the company-specific economic pattern, we need the historic order intake, or sometimes use of the sales data of our clients, so that we can compare the movement in the sector and the movement in the individual company. So there are 3 sets of data: macroeconomic data, sector-specific data, and company-specific data. The forecasting model which we apply, we call it the Peter Meyer forecasting model, and giving reference to our inventor, Peter Meyer. He was the long-term CEO of a Swiss machine tool manufacturer called Starrag, and the machine tool industry has the problem that order intake is extremely volatile. There are very few other sectors that have such a big volatility as machine tool. And this makes it very challenging for a CEO, of course, to do a proper corporate planning, and he thought hard about how would it be possible to do better forecasts of the market situation. And that's how we, as a CEO, and he started over the years, came up with this idea of doing this mathematical model to provide the order intake. And after a few years, he managed to do quite reliable order intake forecasts. In the late 90s, he decided that he wanted to become an independent forecaster. He basically made his hobby his profession, and he was very well connected in the industry. And the first client of him was Swissmem. Swissmem is the Swiss Association of the machinery producers, metal producers, electronic sector. And since more than 20 years, we provide Swissmem with the order intake forecasts. Later on, individual companies also approached Peter Meyer and were asking for company-specific forecasts. And there's a good number of companies, several dozen of companies, whom we provide with company-specific order intake forecasts. There are companies, the smallest one is makes an annual turnover of about 50 million, and most companies, they have a size of a few $100 million US dollar, euros, francs turnover. And then there's some big ones with several billion turnover a year. That is about the kind of companies that work with us. And Peter Meyer, I forgot that one. Peter Meyer, he approached us a few years ago. The HPO Group, which also has a management consulting arm branch. And Peter Meyer was getting into retirement, and he was looking for a successor solution. And that's when HPO came in, and we bought the company and renamed it to HPO Forecasting. And now I'm heading a small team doing those forecasts for our clients. Yes, please test us. It's all theory, but it gets practical once we can talk to each other and once we can also do some analysis for you. So how does it work? Go to our website, www.hpoforecasting.com, and there you see all the contact information. Get in touch with us, with me, with one of my colleagues. And we then set up an online video call where it takes about 1 hour. We talk you through our forecasting model. We give you some indication what kind of forecasting quality you can expect from our side. We also give you more information whether for your specific sectors in this little sector you're working in, whether for this sector good quality forecasting models are possible. And after this call, if you come to the conclusion this could be interesting for you, then we sign a non-disclosure agreement and you provide us with your historic order intake data. We take this data and do a preliminary analysis. Meaning we analyze your historic order intake data with our mathematical model and check whether we can explain with our macroeconomic model the fluctuation in your company of the order intake. In case this is possible, then this is a very strong indication that a good quality forecasting model is possible. In case we cannot explain your fluctuation with our forecasting model, then it's an indication that it's not possible. It's simple as that. After the preliminary analysis, we set up another meeting where we present to you the results of the preliminary analysis. We have time and room for discussion, and only after this meeting you have to decide whether you would like to work with our forecasts in the future. What I forgot to tell, the preliminary forecast analysis also includes a free of charge 6 months forecast, so that you also they get a little something and to test us. And yeah, and in case you decide you want to work with us, very simple, we have a contract and you get every 3 months you get a forecasting update from our side. So please go to www.hpoforecasting.com and get in touch with us. We are looking forward to hear from you. Thank you.